This is CBC Vancouver News.
Just waiting for the government to do something, and not just for myself, but my neighbors too.
2 years later and still nothing from the province. Chilliwack residents whose homes were hammered by landslides are struggling to recover. Plus,
it's just an awful situation that this company has left everybody in.
a Surrey cleaning company goes under with dozens of customers and staff claiming to be out thousands of dollars. And
I'm glad that businesses are raising this with the federal government, as we are, because it is an issue that should be dealt with.
the Premier's response to an uptick in crime that has London drugs on the brink of closing some stores. Good evening, I'm Tanya Fletcher. Thanks for joining us. Well, the province is putting out a weather warning tonight as fall storms move across much of BC. Environment Canada says strong winds and heavy rain will continue to pummel many regions overnight and into tomorrow. It's all because of an atmospheric river targeting coastal sections. It's triggering rainfall warnings for most of Vancouver Island. The Ministry of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness is urging British Columbians to prepare accordingly by clearing storm drains, the eaves troughs and gutters. If you're in a potential flooding zone as well, be sure to move valuables in your home up to higher ground. We'll have the very latest in the 5-day forecast at the end of the show. Well, meanwhile, some people are still trying to recover from similar weather that left destruction 2 years ago. A half dozen displaced Chilliwack residents say the province has not given them any support after landslides forced them from their homes. It was caused by torrential rain and flooding that inundated the Fraser Valley during an atmospheric river in 2021. As John Hernandez reports, local officials say help is desperately needed.
It makes you feel kind of helpless.
2 years ago, Irv Workington checked on his chickens as rains pounded his Chilliwack Lake Road property. He brought some eggs back into his house.
About 2 minutes later, I heard a huge crash. And I went out to investigate, and the hillside had come down and completely buried my chicken house. Well, we're looking at where the damage came down. You can see up top there, that's where the slide started, about 100 feet up.
The slide didn't take out his house, but days later, the property was inspected by a district-appointed engineer.
He said to get out as quick as possible because impeding for the whole mountain to come down.
Workington is one of 6 property owners in the Chilliwack River Valley whose properties have been deemed unsafe and unlivable following the historic atmospheric river. None have received insurance payouts or disaster relief from the government.
I'm stuck of just living out of a tote and just waiting for the government to do something.
BC assessment on my property, $1 for the house, $1 for the acre of land, total value $2.
Richard Holmes and Mary Lee Murr's house is off its foundation. Calls for provincial help denied or unanswered.
It's like dealing with a black hole. A lot of my emails were not even acknowledged.
District leaders have been advocating for provincial buyouts.
It's been too long. It's 2 years almost. These people are taxpayers. They're salt of the earth residents. They need to have some resolution here.
The province says, unlike floods, landslides aren't covered by its disaster relief policy, but it's not ruling out other potential funding.
I'm aware of these 6 individuals. We are in conversations with the district, and in addition to that, Minister Ma and I will be having further discussions with our colleagues.
Residents call it a vague promise heard time and time again.
It's like basically dangling a carrot in front of you all the time.
The district says it plans to keep up the fight, and legal action could be next. John Hernandez, CBC News, Chilliwack.
Well, dozens of customers and staff claim they've been left high and dry by a Surrey-based cleaning company. Many say they're still owed hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in services that were never completed and wages that were never paid. Michelle Morton has more.
So they clean the shower.
When Catherine Gamble realized her arthritis was preventing her from cleaning her home, she looked online for a company she could afford.
Scrubbi kept sending emails and saying, we'd love to do business with you. Here's a discount for 1 or 2 cleanings.
The 66-year-old retiree says the cleaners did a great job and she renewed her plan in the spring. But a few weeks ago, she read a Facebook post that claimed Scrubbi was not paying its employees.
Do a little bit of dusting.
She contacted Scrubbi but didn't hear back. Then Gamble says nobody came for her scheduled cleaning last week.
If somebody had actually shown up, I would have given them whatever cash I had on me.
Gamble says she's out more than $650. CBC News went to Scrubbi's office address listed on the Better Business Bureau's website in Surrey, but saw no signs of the company. Scrubbi has not responded to numerous requests for an interview. The BBB says the company is unaccredited and believed to be shut down. Some former Scrubbi employees say they're still owed wages. Kira Johnston says she started working with Scrubbi in the spring to make ends meet while she faced some health challenges.
It was okay.
But in September, she says Scrubbi told her her paycheck would be late.
I am still kind of catching up on my financial situation due to my health reasons. So it was definitely pretty hard.
Johnston says she's owed about $500. She's part of a Facebook group called Unpaid Scrubbi Workers Unite, which has around 150 members across Canada. Some have been considering their legal options.
I know some of them have been on the notice of eviction, and some can't even pay to feed their families, which is just heartbreaking.
The Better Business Bureau says if you used a credit card to pay for a service you did not receive, contact your card company to see if you can get the charges reversed. And if you're owed a lot of money, you may want to hire a lawyer. Michelle Morton, CBC News, Vancouver.
A major BC retailer says it may have to close some of its stores because of rising crime. London Drugs says it's facing a rash of thefts and violence, sometimes targeting employees. Michelle Gassoub has that story.
London Drugs says it's losing millions of dollars a year in stolen merchandise, but the retailer is even more concerned about a rise in violent incidents towards staff. The stories are harrowing.
The employee approached the individual and convinced the individual that they should maybe pay for those items or leave them behind, and as the person left without the items, they pulled out a hatchet and struck that employee.
London Drugs employees are trained to try and de-escalate situations with shoplifters before they call police.
One of the things that maybe people don't understand is it's not in our best interest to arrest somebody or trigger the justice system. We're trying to stop it from happening in the first place and prevent it.
But with violent incidents involving hatchets, knives, and even guns increasing, that training isn't enough to keep employees safe.
We have to look at the hard realities of closing stores in certain markets because the theft, but more importantly, the threat of violence. Our employees just don't want to work in certain downtowns, downtown Nanaimo, downtown Kamloops, downtown Vancouver.
It's difficult to quantify just how many incidents of theft there are in a given year. Data compiled by the Vancouver Police Department shows a slight decrease in theft since 2020, but because they're often not reported, there's concern it may just be the tip of the iceberg.
I share the frustration of these businesses.
Premier David Eby says a crackdown on repeat violent offenders is needed.
When people who are involved in a cycle of violence or repeat offenses are released again and again, and without any opportunity to intervene and break that cycle.
A bill that would make it more difficult for those offenders to be released is currently in front of the Canadian Senate. For now, concerns around staff safety at London Drugs remain. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
A former Surrey high school teacher who murdered his pregnant wife 17 years ago has today been granted full parole. 51-year-old Mukhtiar Pangali was serving a life sentence for strangling his wife Manjeet and burning her body in 2006. The Parole Board of Canada now says he's made positive progress during his sentence and has taken responsibility for his actions. The board also says Pangali poses a low risk to reoffend and that his release would help him reintegrate into society. His parole conditions, though, forbid him from contacting his daughter or his wife's family. A charge has been laid 3 years after a crash in Surrey that killed a mother walking with her 2 kids. A 25-year-old man has now been charged with 1 count of dangerous operation of a motor vehicle causing death. Police say an empty cargo van rolled into traffic, hit another vehicle, then jumped a sidewalk and hit the woman. The victim's widow filed a lawsuit alleging the van had been parked illegally with the handbrake off. The accused will have his first appearance in court at the end of October. Well, Premier David Eby says he is open to talking money with the city of Surrey, but that the city must move away from the RCMP as directed by the province. Emily Vance has more on the war of words and the potential legal fight now between Surrey and the province.
Premier David Eby is urging the City of Surrey to complete its transition from the RCMP to the Surrey Police Service. He says the change is no longer up for discussion.
It is very clear that the city will not be successful in any legal challenge. It is a waste of taxpayer dollars. The province is going in this direction. So let's sit down, let's move forward.
The province introduced legislation yesterday to give it the power to force the move. Eby says he understands the city's concerns about the cost of implementing a new force, but that any more delays will only make the process more expensive. He says money is available to support Surrey's transition.
We will support them. We understand there are additional costs here. We will support them in that, and I'm happy to have those discussions with Surrey.
Last Friday, the City of Surrey announced a legal challenge, arguing the province didn't have the jurisdiction to make the decision. BC United MLA Peter Millibar says the province is bringing sledgehammer legislation with little transparency.
What is the true cost of the plan that the province wants to see implemented in Surrey versus what the status quo would have been?
Surrey says it will face a shortfall of $314 million over 10 years if it moves to the SPS. And Mayor Brenda Locke says she's determined to stop the process. The province previously offered $150 million to help aid the transition. Emily Vance, CBC News, Victoria.
Well, Northern BC is losing a primary source of local journalism.
Certainly this week, we're moving out of the, as far as I'm concerned, the funeral of more than a combined 173 years of print journalism.
Glacier Media has announced it's shutting down both the Dawson Creek Mirror and Fort St. John's Alaska Highway News. The final editions are being released this week. The company says running both newspapers, both in print and online, is no longer cost effective. The Dawson Creek Mirror says a new publication, though, will be rolling out next week to keep the community informed. BC conservation officers are investigating an up-close and personal social media video of a bear eating poutine in Whistler. The Conservation Officers Service is not happy about the video taker being so close to the animal. In fact, it has now opened an investigation saying it was unsafe to both the person and the bear, and that feeding the bear, directly or indirectly, is considered illegal. It's not clear who took the video, which was posted on TikTok. Well, a haircut can mark a new beginning. Take Eddie the alpaca, for example. For him, it was literally a weight off his back. His owner brought him to the Tappan Lama Sanctuary outside Kamloops, so overgrown he couldn't even walk. Shelter workers had to use scissors to remove 30 pounds of matted hair. Take a look.
He was very dirty and disheveled, so we could see that there was some care needed, but when I actually got to him, the fleece was all the way down to the ground, so you couldn't see his feet. But he was extremely gentle and kind as he just sat himself down, and Lynn sat on one side and I sat on the other, and we used scissors. It was very satisfying that he obviously appreciated it. And once we'd got the main weight of his back, he stood up, and we could then see the extent of the problems.
Well, still ahead, hundreds are feared dead in Gaza after a hospital was hit, but the source of that strike is still unclear, with Israel and Hamas blaming each other. We'll have the latest from the Middle East coming up next. And thank you for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. Day of the Dead celebrations are fast approaching, and over the weekend, dozens of people, young and old, learned more about the ancient tradition and its origins. Our Janella Hamilton stopped by a free event put on by the local Latin community, which they say is key to preserving their culture.
You don't cut the top here, the one we hold. As a young girl in Sinaloa, Mexico, Carmen Keach says she grew up making papel picado, a decorative art form made by cutting elaborate designs into sheets of paper, used in celebrations across Latin America.
It's part of who we are.
She says the technique is adapted from an ancient tradition practiced by Aztecs, who would use bark as paper to decorate religious sculptures, shrines, and burials.
Papel picado symbolizes the wind, and it symbolizes how fragile is life, right? And symbolize joy.
Today, papel picado is used to adorn Day of the Dead altars to honor loved ones who've died.
For me, it's kind of healing, but they bring something so meaningful for me.
We need to make sure that our new generations, far from home, learning all the traditions and cultural things that we have back to home.
As part of the Latin American Heritage Month Festival, she and volunteers with Latincouver are showing younger generations how to make the traditional Mexican craft.
My wife is Mexican, so we wanted them to learn about Mexican traditions. I think this is one of the most popular Mexican traditions.
I'm learning how to carve a pumpkin. They need to learn how to do this paper.
A piece of nostalgia for some who took part in Sunday's workshop. For others, it's a chance to learn about different cultures.
It's seldom to know about this in Hong Kong. Now it's hard to learn from Latin American culture.
I was more or less in touch with the Mexican culture. So I wanted to know a little bit more about this altar.
This community altar made up of photos and memorabilia of family and friends who have passed away, and paper flowers thought to guide the souls of the dead back to the living through their strong scent and bright colors.
They come in and bring the picture of the beloved one to share with us and light a candle.
Visitors to Granville Island can add to the altar until November 2nd, when the Day of the Dead ceremony will be held. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Welcome back. Let's take you to the Middle East now, where health officials in Gaza claim an Israeli airstrike has hit a hospital, killing at least 500 people. People reportedly wounded in the attack have been rushed to another hospital about 1.5 kilometers away. The Israeli military says it believes the hospital was hit by a rocket that was misfired from inside Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu denies Israel is responsible. Aid workers in Gaza say Israeli airstrikes have pushed the territory to the brink of collapse. Food, water, fuel, and medical supplies are all running out. Well, the strike on the hospital in Gaza has drawn wide international reaction, including from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
The news coming out of Gaza is horrific and absolutely unacceptable. International humanitarian and international law needs to be respected in this and in all cases. There are rules around wars, and it's not acceptable.
Meanwhile, family members of those taken hostage by Hamas are fighting through their anguish, saying the release of their loved ones must be the top priority. The CBC's Margaret Evans is there with their emotional plea tonight.
In Tel Aviv, people pin their hopes up on a wall outside Israel's Ministry of Defense. Pictures of the missing, or those feared taken hostage by Hamas. Their message to the government is simple: don't forget our people in this war. Bring them back alive. Avichai Brodich, whose wife and 3 children are missing, says it must be the primary concern.
You think about me first,
and about all the families around me, you know, and it should be just such an obvious thing around the world that families are first.
He began his vigil alone to manage his anguish. He's since been joined by many more, anxious to keep their loved ones in the public eye.
I decided I had to do something, so this was the best thing I could think of. Come to the Ministry of Defense, you know, where the decisions are being made. Took a chair with me, sat down with my dog.
Allahu Akbar! In the chaos of Hamas's brutal attack, many people were rounded up by militants, some of it caught on videotape. A neighbor reported seeing Broder's family being taken from their kibbutz. His brother Aaron, a Canadian from Toronto here to help, says it was a relief that they'd first thought they'd been killed.
It's like the worst news you can think of in the world. For us, it was great news and hope, yeah.
But Rami Igra, a former Israeli intelligence officer, warns hope is a tenuous thing, especially now.
People are going to hurt, and let's hope that we get as many as we can out of there. But it is a forceful rescue. There's not going to be any kind of negotiations between us and the Hamas, where on the other side we release prisoners.
On Monday, Hamas released a video of a young Israeli woman who identified herself as Mia Shem, asking to be returned to her family. It's not clear when it was filmed or what her condition is. Her mother held an emotional press conference.
I didn't know she's dead or alive until yesterday. All I knew is that she might be kidnapped. I'm begging the world to bring my baby back home.
Igra says there will certainly be more hostage videos to come.
They want the Israeli sentiment, the Israeli public, to start influencing the Israeli government to go into negotiations. This is not going to happen this time, but they will try their best.
Asked if he has advice for the families, he says no advice, only sympathy. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Tel Aviv.
In political news, stateside, Republican Jim Jordan did not win the position of U.S. Speaker of the House of Representatives today.
No person having received a majority of the whole number of votes cast by surname, the Speaker has not been elected.
Jordan, who's on the far right of the Republican Party, didn't receive enough support from his own party. 20 members voted against him. Another vote is now expected. It's been 2 weeks since former Speaker Kevin McCarthy was ousted after also not getting enough support from his fellow Republicans. You're looking at a very wet shot of Georgia Street, and we do still have a number of rainfall warnings in effect. We'll take you through where exactly and time out the full 5-day forecast coming up next. Stay with us.
Well, it's a retailer's dream. Monday morning, 7:30, the 470-car parking lot at the new IKEA store is jam-packed full. There's cars up and down all the streets, and there's hundreds of people waiting to get in on opening day.
Right now.
Were you number one?
Yeah.
You were the first one in line?
Yeah.
And what did you win?
A dining room set, table and chairs.
So 5 o'clock Saturday morning, was it worth it?
Sure.
Why did you come here all night? I mean, why didn't you just come after it's open?
Well, because I got into line so that I thought I was going to get, you know, either a lamp or a chair or something, but I was late.
What did you get?
Potted plant.
A potted plant?
Tree, pine tree.
Was it worth the wait?
Oh, we've had a party all night. We've had a great time. We've all made some new friends.
Yeah, no
because
kidding.
we were sitting around and we're entertained. What else is there to do on a Sunday night?
Finally, 8 o'clock, and the doors open for the first customers in the new store. There's even a real live royal couple on hand to celebrate the opening, a prince and princess from Sweden. For the kids, there's a new and improved ballroom. There's even a restaurant at the new IKEA, featuring such Swedish delights as meatballs, spiced salmon, and herring with onions. Not exactly breakfast food. You've got to hand it to their marketing department. When was the last time you've seen such a big hullabaloo for the opening of a furniture store? And it's not as if their prices are really low. In a very carefully worded announcement, IKEA says 19% of their prices have been reduced. That doesn't mean that their prices have been reduced by 19%. It means that they've cut the prices of 19% of their items. The actual price cuts could be only 1 or 2%. Well, it's certainly a day for Thanksgiving at IKEA. They're estimating that 20,000 people will come through the doors today, and 45% of them will actually spend money. One of the attractions today, of course, is all the prizes they're giving away. A free trip to Sweden and this house back here. The catch is, you have to be here next Sunday afternoon if you've entered the draw and they draw your name and you want the house. You have to be here at IKEA. So if you think it was crowded today, wait till next Sunday.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Celebrate the achievements and resilience of women in the workforce with CBC's Michelle Elliott on November 21st at the annual Dress for Success Luncheon. Get tickets and learn more at successluncheon.ca. And stay on top of what's happening where you live with our weekly newsletter. Subscribe today for special programming series, events, and contests at cbc.ca/Vancouver Inbox.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Our Darius Madavi joins us now with a look at the forecast. And Darius, around this time yesterday, we had several weather warnings in place. Where are we at with those now?
Still certainly in place. We saw a lot of that rain come this afternoon into this evening. We're going to continue seeing that rain over the next 24 hours. And a lot of it is because of a super typhoon that happened half a world away. So across the Pacific Ocean, we had a super typhoon make its way up the coast. Fortunately, very few impacts felt on land. But a lot of that moisture that it was carrying has fallen into the jet stream and made its way over here. So we have, you can see here, this branch, this atmospheric river, making its way here to the south coast. So a lot of that precipitation that we're going to see is as a result of this atmospheric river. Fortunately, not too long lasting. By Thursday, it should make its way south and dissipate. So that should be the end of our moisture. But over the next 48 hours, still quite a bit of moisture remaining. You can see here a lot of that rain that made its way in earlier today. This is likely going to be the worst of it, but there could still be some more flashes of some really intense rainfall still to come into the end of this week. Now, this system that's currently passing through should dissipate overnight, and then we have another wave of rain coming after that. So this is the next 24 hours. 24 hours after that, we see some more buildup, and then that should be most of the rain, although it will continue for the west coast of the island into the weekend. It's not expected to be as heavy, but still we're talking some very significant amounts. So Tofino, 77 millimeters here, but we're talking probably already 70 millimeters having fallen just today on that area. So still looking at some pretty hard-hitting effects, definitely still some flooding possible in those regions. Now, across the province tomorrow, still considerable rainfall through the south and up the coast. These are just going to be some showers that push inland, not any heavy rainfall like we're seeing on the coast, but still need to be on the lookout for that further inland and up in Prince George as well. But these are just sort of scattered showers that are going to be popping up, not like here in Vancouver, where we still have a couple more days of fairly significant rainfall, up to 20 millimeters a day, before we start to get a little bit clearer as we head into the weekend.
We will continue to wait out that rain. Thank you so much, Darius.
Thanks, Tanya.
And that is your late news for this Tuesday, October 17th. For news anywhere, anytime, you can download the free CBC News app. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.